What's up, witches? It's starlight out in the evening, and today's video is going to be a continuation of my Fae series here on the channel. I will link the playlist in whatever corner it goes in, so go catch up on that. And this instalment of this series is going to be about the she. Obviously spelled differently, you can read that in the title, I believe in you. We are going to be using my trusty journal, which has got all the information in it that I'm going to be reading to you. So, let's get started, shall we? We shall. We shall. The Sidhe, also known as the Tuatha De Danann. These are an ancient race of Ireland and have come to be known as Irish Fae. The name Tuatha De Danann means tribe of Danu, who is a goddess of the Irish people. Unlike the garden fairies of England, the Celtic Sidhe are thought to be a far nobler folk. They are thought to be tall of form, pale-skinned, fair-haired, and of regal bearing. They count among their numbers the great fairy king Nuada, who first led them to Ireland, and led them in a battle against the Firbolg. A new opponent, the Milesians, or Milesians, however it's said on the screen, arrived and drove the Tuatha De Danann to the Sidhe Mounds and forced them to live underground, where they live to this day. And that is also where the title Sidhe or Our Sidhe comes from, as they are the people of the hills or mounds. However, these are still the nobility of the Fae folk, and to court them is a dangerous thing unless you are firm in your resolve and willing to learn. At best, they may simply reject your advances if you have any doubt in wanting to work with them, and if not approached properly. At worst, you may find yourself tormented for your hubris in attempting to contact their royal court. Like any progression, if one would like to work with and get to know the royal court of the Fae, one would be best served learning the culture from the bottom. Start with garden Fae, and as you grow in experience, then try moving upwards to those who are older and wiser and much more noble. Whew. They were known to have 4 great treasures, one treasure from each city that they resided in. The Stone of Fowl, which would scream when a true king of Ireland stood upon it. The magic sword of Nuada, also known as the Sword of Light, capable of inflicting only mortal blows when used. The slingshot of the sun god Lu, or spear in some versions, famed for its accuracy when it's used, and the cauldron of Dagda, from which an endless supply of food issued. It is disputed whether the Tuatha De Danann were deities of the Fae, fairy royalty, or indeed fairies at all, though they are very real energy beings you can work with. They are highly skilled in arts, science, poetry, and magic. They were said to come from 4 mythical cities: Phalias, Gorias, Phineas, and Murias, on screen. After the Milesians defeated the Tuatha De Danann, most retreated to the Sidhe Mounds and lived underground, but others fled to Tir Nan Og, the land of youth. Also on the screen. The Sidhe Mounds were hidden from the eyes of mortals with magic and became translated as Otherworld. In the Otherworld, the Danann remained young and seemingly immortal. They are, in a sense, as they remain young and can live a very long time, but they can be killed. Not that you would want to. Why the hell would you want to kill a fairy? Sometimes they aided mortals, while other times they sought their destruction. There were certain cycles in Irish mythology depending on the era. In the Ulster cycle, this is when the Tuatha De Danann were seen as Celtic gods. However, in the Fenian cycle, the Danann had degenerated into nothing more than common Fae people. In other words, the Danann became fairy people and became frequently associated with fairies, which they are to this day. It should be noted that fairies in Celtic myths, especially Welsh, Irish, and Arthurian myths, were human but with supernatural power. Modern interpretations, aka versions of other races of Fae, were seen as prettified. In early Irish and Welsh literature, they can be tall or short, beautiful or ugly. They can be benevolent beings or frighteningly cruel or malign. Morrigan and Morgan Le Fay wouldn't be considered fairies in the more well-known sense, but they are indeed fey beings. The Sidhe is where the line is blurred between deity and fairy. It is said in some legends that the Sidhe mounds, or burial ground, were actual portals to the other world, or to Tir na Og, as well as the legend that while the Fae could indeed be hurt, that was only with iron weapons that could cause them harm. By all accounts, they are indeed powerful magicians and were described in many Irish mythologies, or accounts now, as both gods and not gods. They are generally described as stunningly beautiful, although there can also be hideous monsters. It is likely that a Sidhe can look however they want, as they are very accomplished shapeshifters. Some Irish Christians believed that the fairies were fallen angels, not bad enough to be damned to hell, but beyond saving, so couldn't regain their place in heaven. Others believed that once defeated by the Milesians and having fled to the Sidhe mounds, they were deprived of offerings and affection, so shriveled and withered and became the little people. Though that one I wholeheartedly disagree with. They are members of a powerful supernatural race comparable to the fairies and elves of old. They are often called the kings and queens of fairies, however they are in no way winged or diminutive. They are otherworldly beings who resemble humans in size and appearance, though are considered a distinct race. They are quite separate from human beings and yet had much contact with them over the centuries. They are tall with a noble appearance and sweet silvery speech, which is the most common description. They are sometimes described as transparent beings who walked without making a sound or leaving tracks. They had great intelligence and vast knowledge. They were said to be ruled by one king or queen, but they had varying and separate tribes that often warred over one thing or another. Down through the ages, the Ael Sidhe has been said to be in contact with the mortals, giving them protection, healing them, and even teaching them some of their skills. In folk practice, they are often given plenty of offerings, and great care is taken to avoid angering or insulting them, sometimes going so far as to not name them directly and simply call them the fair folk or something similar. They are generally benign until angered, They are generally benign until angered by some foolish action of a mortal. They were notorious for causing mass disruption when slighted, so many got into a habit of leaving an offering. They are fierce guardians of their abodes and can be seen at times of dusk or dawn, as these are the tween times and were considered the best connection to the Gaelic otherworld. They are also best connected to at Beltane, Summer and Samhain and Midsummer. So Beltane, Samhain and Midsummer. They are sometimes considered to be nature spirits divided into distinct categories: water, wood, air, etc., as the elements of each place, and many a place in Ireland and Scotland, especially the lakes, are said to be guarded by an Ael Sidhe. There are several types of Ael Sidhe, the most well known being the Banshee, which I've also done a video on. Other varieties include Cat Sith, or the fairy cat, Dog Sith, or the fairy dog, the Ban Nai, or the washerwoman. Another well-known being is the fey creature, the Lanon Sidhe, a fairy lover. I believe this was Lanon, I think. A distinction is often made between the Sidhe who are seen walking on the ground after sunset and the Slú Sidhe, a fairy host, who travel through the air at night and are known to take mortals with them on their journeys. Again on the screen. These airborne spirits are of an unpleasant nature and perhaps the cursed, evil or restless dead. There is so much more to cover here. We'll do more pages on specific beings, too varied to do overall elemental offerings, etc. So the Sidhe are basically just a race of people that have their own history, and they are born and the ancestral lineage of Ireland. And there are actually quite a few families that still claim to be related to the Sidhe. So there are a lot of beings, a lot of Celtic deities and beings like the Morrigan and Morgan Le Fay and beings like that were considered to be the Sidhe or to be Fae by the Irish people or by the Celtic people. So if you would like a more in-depth kind of mini-series, I guess, on Sidhe beings, or like more in-depth into like the creatures and beings of the Sidhe, then leave that in the comments below and I would happily get to that because it was super interesting to do that research. As for having any contact with the Sidhe, I feel like I'd be able to do that better if I was in the kind of northern regions of the UK. I'm not, I'm in the southern region. So, yeah, it would definitely be easier to do that there. However, I have had some minor contact with the Morrigan, and I really, really want to see who Morgan Le Fay was, because I know very little about her, and I feel like I should know more. So I'd like to do some more research anyway, and try and connect more to these beings. But as for general experience, I haven't had much, so I can't really comment on that. So, having said that, I think that wraps up this video. Hope you learned something and enjoyed. Let me know if you want me to do like a mini series on different types of Sidhe or Celtic gods or whatever. And be unapologetically you, no shame, and I will see you in the next one.